I'm Mash Bonigala, brand strategist. So, when I work with strategy clients, when I'm trying to find a positioning strategy for a client, I always like to start with the revenue goals. And the reason is that if you focus on the revenue goals first before anything, what happens then is that you have certain concrete, measurable, and at the end of the day, the most important part of your business that then becomes the guiding force for your strategy. Because think about it. If you don't think about revenue and you're just looking at some vague kind of metrics, maybe you're thinking, okay, I want to penetrate this market, or I want to gain mind share, or I want to get X number of customers. Now, these are all, yeah, they're good metrics, they're good goals, but they don't really give you the full picture. What gives you the full picture is revenue. Of course, profit. So revenue and then profit, because revenue without profit is not what you're looking for. In fact, a lot of startups out there suffer because even though they have revenue, they don't have profit. And over the long term, if you're not pumping the profit back into your startup, then you start to notice that it becomes a touch and go, right? So anything happens in the market, a new competitor enters, your target audience, they change their mindset. Anything can affect your business. So, what do I mean by thinking about the revenue goals? Now, every business, now I say every business, the ultimate goal is, of course, revenue. Ultimate goal is profit. In fact, a business should exist to make profit. I didn't say this. I'm just paraphrasing it from someone famous who said that in the past. So, if you want to think about revenue, there are two ways of doing this. One is your personal kind of goals. You might have a personal goal of, I don't know, making $1 million in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Or you could have business oriented revenue goals. You want your business to hit $10 million in the next 5 years, something like that. Now, they're both valid kind of revenue goals. They both will enable you to come up with strategies in different ways, because one is personal, the other is business. Now, for a brand strategy to be effective, I think the business goals, the business revenue goals are better than having personal goals. And even if you are a starter, founder, you're just a single person, even if you're a freelancer, right? Because at that time, when you are a single person startup and you're just a founder, your personal goal may be confused or blurred with your business goals. And that's okay. But having, sitting down and thinking through and trying to find the difference, or anyway, clarifying what your personal goal is and what your business goals should be in terms of revenue will actually help you down the line. So in terms of the business revenue goal, do you just arbitrarily pick a number? Do you just say, I want to make $1 million, I want my business to make $1 million in the next couple of years? No, you actually go through and think about the market. What is the scope of the market, right? Of your product or service, whatever you're trying to, get out there. What is the market capacity? What is the total market value? Is it a $2 billion market value? Is it a $200 million market value? Is it only $2 million market value? Or is it a $20,000 market value? So looking at the market value actually as one of the first steps, not just for building the brand strategy, but for your startup, for putting your time and effort into chasing your dream of this startup. One of the benchmarks is the market value. Excuse me, is the market value. It's the market. What is the total value of that market? Secondly, once you know that and you understand the market value, looking at the competitive landscape, not a deep analysis, you can do that later on, but just know what is going on in that market. And I'm sure you already know that, right? Because you've been thinking about this idea. You're probably a player already in that market segment in one form or another. Maybe you're working for a company, you're working for an agency, you're working for someone else, and then now you're trying to, you have a specific idea, you have a specific unique take on that market segment that you want to, launch as a startup. So you probably already have a pretty good idea of what the competition is, and you know the size of the companies in that market segment, right? So based on this, you will need to then, start off with an almost arbitrary kind of revenue goal. But as you work through that, as you're analyzing, should it be a $2 million revenue goal for the next 2 years, 5 years? Or should it be $10 million? Or should it be just $200,000, right? So as you're looking at the numbers, as you're evaluating the market value, the competitive landscape out there, and what your business should aim for, you will slowly start to get an idea of what might be reasonable and what might not be. Now, a lot of marketing and strategy experts say that you need to go for the big and hairy and audacious goals, right? The bag. Now that is good, but when it comes to revenue, just blatantly just going for the big goals may not be the right way to do it, right? If you're just going to sort of say, I'll pick a number that sounds impressive, or $10 million. That sounds good, right? It's big, it's audacious. Let me just go for that. Yeah, well, when theoretically speaking, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, right? So the bigger the better, because if you're aiming for the moon, you can hit the top of the mountain. If you're aiming for the top of the mountain, you're hitting the midway to the mountain. If you're aiming for midway, you're just at the base. That kind of analogy, that kind of thinking. But the fact is that establishing revenue goals is a very difficult thing, and it's very critical. That's why no one does it. It's probably too difficult to think through it at the beginning of your startup. And that's why I'm making this video, because you need to do the hard work first. You need to do the thing that you don't like doing, which is coming up with a revenue goal that makes sense, that is based on logic, that is reasonable, and that can be achieved. Because if you set up a revenue goal that cannot be achieved, right? So let's say you are trying to enter, let's say your startup is, I don't know, it's a tech startup, wearable tech, and it's something like a wallet that is that can liaise with your phone, something like that, right? And wearable tech is a $10 billion market, let's say, and there are many companies out there that are pretty, they're doing $1 billion in sales and so on. Setting out saying, I want to hit $200 million in the next 2 years, maybe a really, maybe a target that may be unreachable, right? You get what I mean. A bad example. This morning, I'm not, I don't know, examples are eluding me, right? But you get the idea, right? So try to set targets that are reasonable, that are achievable, okay? So, why do you have to set a revenue target? That's because once you have a revenue goal, once you know that in the next 2 years, your business has to produce, $1 million, that then gives you an idea of how to break it down. In fact, you have to break it down and say, if at the end of 2 years, your business needs to generate $2 million, what do you need to do? Assuming, of course, the first 3 to 6 months would be, maybe no revenue at all. So that gives you a year and a half. Then you break it down. In fact, that breakdown analysis will enable you to think not just about the strategy of how to achieve that, but in fact, pricing. And then what is the quickest way of getting to that revenue? You could say, okay, maybe I can produce high volume, low ticket kind of a product or service. Would that enable me to reach that goal? Or is it better to have a high ticket and low volume strategy? Because then instead of selling a $200 product to 10 clients in a week, let's say, maybe a $2,000 product to 3 clients. See, so in the first scenario, you're making $2,000 a week. In the second scenario, you could end up making $4,000 or $6,000, right? So and then your messaging, your whole strategy, your positioning, because now you're thinking, okay, I want to target high ticket. Who are my target audience who can sustain this high ticket model, right? Who can afford to pay $2,000. So what should my product look like? What should my service look like? What is the value I'm going to add to that? What should I add? What is the stack? So you see how that works out, right? So having a good revenue goal, and again, not just an arbitrary revenue goal, but having a solid revenue goal will make your strategy process really come to life, and it'll enable you to sort of work out the steps you need to do. It'll help you with your pricing. It'll help you with your service, your product. It'll help you with your marketing and messaging framework, because now your buyer persona would be different based on your revenue goals. You see what I'm saying? So today, think about your revenue goals. Think about what you need to do in terms of establishing a revenue goal that would be useful, right? I hope you found this video useful. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so right now. I'll be posting many more videos for founders, for business owners, for entrepreneurs, in terms of startups, in terms of regular businesses. And if you have any questions about this particular topic on revenue goals and why they're important or why they're not. If you think this is a load of baloney, just leave a comment below or hit me up on Twitter. My handle is @Bonigala, or follow me on LinkedIn. I post a lot of tips, insights, strategies, tactics for founders on LinkedIn, and of course, even Twitter. All right. So till my next video, take care and prosper.